Hi, folks, and welcome back to MMA Talking Heads, sponsored by MMAmania.com. I'm here, your host, Jason Probst, along with my co-host, Ian Parker from CageHero.net. Ian, how's it going today?
It's going. No real MMA this weekend, so I'm going through a little withdrawal, but coffee's getting me through.
That's right. They need like an MMA patch, and you just put it on your arm, and it gives you like old Pride memories.
I hear you. They should do a nice little marathon. And now that football is gone every Sunday, we should do a little Pride marathon. That'd be fantastic.
Hey, absolutely. I'm all about guys coming out in wrestling matches and getting kicked in the face by Crow Cop. That's like my favorite Pride moment. So speaking of people getting kicked in the face, sans wrestling mask, we wanted to jump into a few different things on this week's episode of Talking Heads. First off, take a look at the UFC on Fuel 7 card, which is Renan Barão against Michael McDonald. Interesting 135-pound bout there for what appears to be the vacant title with Dominic Cruz out. What are your thoughts on Barão versus McDonald, especially now that Barão's made some noise about going up to 45 if teammate Jose Aldo moves up? Ian, what's the deal with this?
I love this fight. I mean, I don't think there's been a better interim title fight within a weight class in a long time. You know, Michael Mayday McDonald has been really cruising through everything. Anyone they put in front of him, he's been destroying. I mean, I can't believe what he did to Miguel Torres when people didn't even really hear about him.
Right.
This one's really hard to pick. if I'm gonna play it safe, I'll say Barão. Barão has fought everyone in the division, essentially, and he's looked really good. He's very big. Apparently, he's the same size as Aldo before the weight cut.
Seriously?
Yeah, that's what he said in his interview. It takes a lot out of him. I know a lot of guys who've seen him walk around, and they say he's a big guy. You know,
like
when I met
him, are we
him,
talking like 160?
I'm thinking between 160, 168. Yeah, I think he's around that, you know, which now it seems to be the normal cut, 20 to 30 pounds in weight classes. So that's not too crazy. But, you know, look, you got a guy like that at 135, and he's got a lot of experience, and he hasn't really showed a whole lot of weakness. So that's going to be something for McDonald to really, you know, go back to the tape and really search through. I would go up around this fight based on the experience, his overall game, but he better not sleep on McDonald because this kid is good.
Yeah.
He is real good.
And, you know, McDonald, I think he's like 22 years old. I really love, like, when they threw GSP in against Matt Hughes and he was like 24 or something, 23.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I love when they just throw a guy in that's like 22, 23 and just see what happens. You know, I mean, and I think it's the kind of fight where McDonald could definitely give Barão a lot of trouble.
He could win.
Moments,
no, he's got the total package to do it. He can win. You know, the age thing is becoming seems to be the typical thing nowadays. I mean, a lot of these guys who are coming in, you and I were just talking before the recording about Anthony Pettis' little brother Sergio.
Right.
He's 6-0 as a pro fighter, and he's only 19 years old. Right. You know, Stefan Struve was another guy who started off real young. Diego Sanchez started off real young. Nate Diaz started off real young. So, you know, nowadays this sport has become extremely popular to the point where
20
kids are
25.
It is, and kids are focused. You know what it is? Just like how NBA, NFL, all professional sports, these kids are doing it in elementary school, middle school, high school, college. Well, yes, we don't really have our minor leagues and our PAL sports, you know, for that, but kids are starting early with the goals of being pros, and you know what? Expect this to be the normal thing.
Well, you know, an interesting thing, too, the semi-main on the UFC on Fuel 7 card is Cub Swanson against Dustin Poirier. Very interesting fight. Dustin Poirier gave the Chang Sung-Jung Korean Zombie a heck of a battle for losing in 4 rounds. But Cub Swanson, I think, is a very underrated guy, very talented. You know, this is another fight, too, where depending on what happens in the 145-pound division, if Poirier wins this, he could be right up there again, possibly in line, maybe in a fight, too, with a title shot. What do you make of this match? Because I like Dustin Poirier. I've been high on the guy for a long time, and he's huge for 145.
You know, he is big for 145. He is very talented. I think they rushed him a little too quickly up the ladder. Yeah, Not saying that Korean Zombie was what I thought he was going to be in that fight because I thought Poirier was going to do his thing. Right. You know what? That division is very messed up right now. You know, Ricardo Lamas essentially should be next in line. Korean Zombie could be next in line. And then you got, you know, Showtime Pettis coming down fighting for the belt. Right now, you know, with that fight, here's the problem. I keep betting against Cub Swanson, and I keep getting my bell rung. No, look, to your point, this guy is probably the most underrated fighter in that division. For some reason, people are just looking at him still as that, you know, arrogant wild striker from WEC.
Right.
He is not. After a bunch of losses, he took the time at Greg Jackson's camp, and he's really become a well-rounded fighter. I'm going to go out on the limb here. I'm going to take Cub Swanson in this fight. I think he has the momentum. I think Poirier got dismantled by Korean Zombie. It takes a lot to come back with your confidence to be at the top of where it was, and then to go up against a guy like Cub. If I was the UFC, I would have given Poirier a little bit lesser of a fight to get him back into the swing of things. But you know what? Cub Swanson is very good. Poirier is very good. It's going to be a hell of a battle. I'm going to take the underdog, which I think Swanson's going to be.
Yeah.
He's got the momentum. He's riding a nice win streak, and he's been fighting very intelligently. Yeah. I'm taking Cub.
No, and I think that's a solid pick. I'll probably go with Poirier, but, one thing about Cub Swanson is the way he puts it all together. He's really evolved, like you said, from his early days in the WEC, where he's, kind of this rough-looking guy with a lot of tats, and he was kind of a headhunter. He's really become a very evolved kickboxer, and I really like that bout. And I wanted to talk to something you just addressed, Ian, is kind of the 145-pound division, kind of thrown into disarray a little bit, but in a good way, with the announcement recently that Jose Aldo is going to take on the challenge of one Anthony Pettis, who's the top lightweight contender, who's going to be dropping down. And I think that fight is August 3rd. What do you think of this match? I mean, is this a match that could really kind of throw everything in disarray if Pettis wins or if he gets destroyed? I mean, what are the who's, what's, where's, and when's of this deal?
This is a win-win for the UFC. I think if you're going to move anyone from a different weight class into an immediate title fight, this was the smartest one you could do. Look, if Rashad Evans would have beat Little Nog and he would have got a title shot with Anderson Silva, everyone would have been okay with it just because of the lack of contenders they're claiming at middleweight, with the whole Weidman, the Vitor Belfort, and all these guys. Pettis has won his last X amount in a row. He smashed Lauzon. He smashed Cerrone. He's beaten everyone except for, I think, Clay Guida in the UFC, who was able to grind out a decision. Bringing him down to fight, it makes complete sense. Because then what you do is, look, I feel bad for Ricardo Lamas. He's been the underdog against Hioki, against Koch, and he beat them both. Look, the fight to make now, exactly. And look, and Chad Mendes is right there too. And, I wouldn't rush him back to a title shot yet, just so you can keep building that division. I think what you do is you do Ricardo Lamas versus Korean Zombie, which I believe is going to happen in May. On Twitter, Lamas did say that he was booked for a fight in May, just couldn't announce it yet. In my opinion, if it's not against Zombie, I don't know who. It might be against Clay Guida.
Right. Ooh, that could be good.
Whichever one you don't have, Mendes now needs a fighter and needs someone to fight because Manny Gambarian went out with an injury. So Mendes is left without an opponent. If you could slide Guida into that spot, and then you have Lamas fight Zombie, I think Pettis coming down is great. If Pettis loses to Aldo, it's pretty simple. You move Pettis back to 155, and then you let him fight the winner of Josh Thompson and Nate Diaz.
That'd be a fantastic fight.
Because either way who wins, it's an absolutely phenomenal fight. This is the one super fight, if you want to call it that, other than Frankie Edgar, that's really extremely justified and does not harm a division whatsoever.
Right. And it's very rare that you can have a guy change divisions with kind of a win-win. Because a lot of the time...
You're right. It's probably the only one. I mean, look, if you move SP to middleweight to fight Anderson Silva, and he loses, he comes down, it's totally different. The only other one that I would think would make the most sense, John Jones versus Kane, because Jones can go back down, he'll be fine. If Anderson Silva goes up to fight John Jones and for some crazy reason gets absolutely destroyed, we might not see Anderson Silva again. He might just say, look, I fought the best of the best. I'm the GOAT. John Jones is the next, Messiah. He's the new phenom.
But see, here's the thing, though. I think, and this is why I think GSP is never going to, I've always said he's never going to fight Anderson Silva. He doesn't want to fight him. He is at the perfect point in his career right now. He's at his physical and mental, his technical peak. And not only that, is from a physiological perspective, he is perfect at that weight. He's big for the weight, but not too big in like a Joe Riggs kind of way. So he can cut down and be perfect. And I don't think you move him up to middleweight. Plus, not only does his physiology change, but he has a chance. I think he would get destroyed against Anderson Silva. I think he would get killed. And mentally, that's not good. And I think in a certain sense, I don't want to see John Jones against Cain Velasquez right now, maybe in a year or two, because I guess I just don't see Pettis getting destroyed the same way those guys would. Maybe it's because it's biased because it's against a smaller guy in Aldo. But I just think sending a great fighter in against a bigger guy just so we can get our rocks off, and then sending him back is just kind of different. So I think it's kind of a win-win.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I agree with you. Also, to tell you the truth, I think the interest in GSP versus Anderson Silva has kind of lost its flavor with the growth of John Jones and with the lack of contenders in both. Look, welterweight division, GSP could fight a Nate Marquardt. He could fight a Johnny Hendricks. Sure. He's going to fight Nick Diaz. Those are 3 legitimate fights that everyone would really love to see. Anderson Silva's in a little bit of a jam right now because outside of Weidman and Vitor, maybe Hector Lombard, even maybe, Luke Rockhold, you got Jacare, Konstantinos Philippou. You got a lot of guys there who you can still mix in. The problem is they're in a standstill right now because no one's really there at the moment where the UFC is like gung-ho about it.
Right.
And at 205 for John Jones, Sonnen's going to create a nice publicity situation in social media because of who he is.
Right.
Outside of that, you got Gegard Mousasi and you got Gustafsson. After that, you're in the same situation.
Right. You're no man's land.
Unless you got Daniel Cormier to go to 205, Jones is going to be in a similar situation if he runs through everyone. So that's why the super fights are becoming more of an option.
No, and I agree. And I think, Daniel Cormier is already a fascinating addition to the UFC. The fact that if he really can get down to 205, which he knows his body obviously better than I do, but he's big at heavyweight. He's a thick 238, and he had trouble making 211 for the Olympics. Can he get down to 205? I mean, he's not one of these tall, lanky guys. I mean, he's a short, stocky guy.
In Mike Dolce, we trust.
In Mike Dolce, the Dolce guy. Right. 210, I could probably get down to 160 next week. And the Dolce.
Look, in reality, in my opinion, if Forrest Griffin can get to 205, okay, and if John Jones can get to if Rumble Johnson can get to 170 even one time, okay, which he did, then that means he can. Look, Rumble's fighting at heavyweight against Andrei Arlovsky,
right?
Which, by the way, that is awesome because it's weird, but look, if you're an outside organization, okay, if you're not the UFC, and even if you're not Bellator, which Bellator puts on some pretty underrated fights, it might not be the name of names, but those guys come out swinging. I really give credit to Bjorn Remney for that.
Yes.
If you're the World Series of Fighting, you don't need to make sense of your matchups. You just need to put together names to get butts in seats.
This is true.
If Rumble Johnson walks around at probably 230, which is the craziest stuff in the world, and Arlovsky's still a decent name. If I were them, I maybe would have tried to get Barnett to come in there.
Right.
But you know what? Rumble versus Arlovsky, people are going to be like, you know what? That is so crazy. I will watch that.
It's like bear baiting in the Roman Coliseum.
But not to get completely off topic. My point was that weight cutting is a very interesting science. Dolce has it down to a perfect science. Regardless of what some other people may say, they might not love it. It is what it is. It does work. Cormier can get down to 205. It might take some time. He might need some trial cuts. It's not going to be easy, but a lot of these
hell on wheels, though. I mean, I thought about that, man. When he said he dropped to 205, I saw the way that he tossed Josh Barnett around and other guys. I mean, just the way an Olympic wrestler operates is on such a level. And I thought he could very much toss John Jones on his head. I know Jones is much taller.
No, he can. He can.
MMA,
I mean, look,
but
to your point, okay, and the one thing that people sometimes who are not from a wrestling background don't understand,
right?
Wrestlers have a different type of strength.
Right.
Perfect example. Look at Ben Askren. Okay, right. The guy does not come into any fight chiseled. It's just it's not his body type. All right, it's not walking around, buffed up, but he takes down anyone, and no one who is underneath him can get up.
Right.
Okay.
Core strength.
So, long story short, yes, I think Cormier can get to 205.
Oh, I know. I think it'd be a fascinating fight, and I think it's some good developments in both the 135 division with Hainan against McDonald. And Poirier against Cub Swanson this weekend. So, anyways, wanted to thank you for joining us again, folks. And you can get hold of Ian at Ian.
You can get at me at Parker Cachiro or even at Cachiro. My business partner and I run both Twitters. Ask any questions. And with Cachiro, we're doing new conversations. Each day is a different weight class. So feel free to shoot us any question based on the topic of the day. Thanks so much, guys. You can get a hold of me at twitter.com/JasonProbst. Thanks again for MMAmania.com for hosting us. And if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, send them to us at twitter.com/MMA Talking Heads. And we'll see you next week. Thanks so much.